بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله وكفاه صلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله عليكم. نبدأ إن شاء الله درسنا اليوم. begin في كتاب الطهارة من فصل أما إزالة النجاسة فأربعة أنواع. Right, so removal of impurities is of four categories. نعم. تقرأ.
وأما إزالة النجاسة فأربعة أنواع: نضح ومسح وغسل والاستجمار. والمزال النجاسة عنه ثلاثة أشياء: جسد المصلي أو ما هو حامل له من لباس وخف وصوف وشبهه أو زاء أو ما هو مصلى عليه من أرض أو غيرها. فالنضح يختص بكل ما شك فيه ولم تتحقق نجاسته من جميع ذلك إلا الجسد، فقيل ينضح وقيل يغسل بخلاف غيره.
شكرا. Okay, so four categories to remove impurities. You have nadah. Nadah is to, it's almost like saying to spray, but it's not spraying as in a spray like a spray, but it's like saying to kind of just sprinkle water over something. Like if I had some water and I just had some, let's say this was a piece of cloth here and I just sprinkled some water on there, that would be called nadah. To wash it, as in to soak the actual cloth so it's entirely wet and soaking, is to wash. And then you have masah, which is wiping over it. There's a distinction between kind of sprinkling water on it and between just wiping over it. And then you have istijmar, where we'll see where things like stones or other things are used. You could say paper or whatever is used to clean something. Right, now, نعم المزال النجاسة عنه ثلاثة أشياء. So the things which are purified are three: that the body of the one intending to pray, and note how he has linked this in to praying. So just as Qadi Abdul Wahhab al-Baghdadi has also clarified in his book, the Talqeen, and other ulama have stated that the obligation for purification comes in with salah. And salah is the reason you are kind of trying to, or you are obliged to be pure. Okay, so the body of the one intending to pray, or whatever he is carrying in terms of garment. Okay, so whatever clothes he has, and he didn't say wearing, he said carrying. Why do you think he said carrying?
Because it includes everything, not just the clothing you're wearing.
Exactly, like what though?
A bag you could carry and stuff like that.
Exactly, and it could even be, and there's some masail to the extent it gets really complicated. I mean, when I say complicated, it doesn't get complicated, but it gets like sometimes they start to get more intricate with masail. That imagine you had something really long, and it's like to the extent, imagine, and they discuss this with an imama, or sometimes even like a shawl or a drape or something like that you had, but especially with the imama, they've said that, let's say if it was quite big, you had this massive imama tied on your head, yeah, so all of a sudden it unfolds, but a portion of it stays stuck wherever it is. Let's say it was stuck in a hat or something. Now it rolls off, and so you're standing there, and it's kind of rolled down, and it's kind of unrolled, and it's reached all the way like a meter or and a half behind you even. Let's just say it's a massive, and some of these imamas are actually massive if you see them. Right, so now the interesting thing is, what if where it's rolled onto and reached, it goes and lands in some impurity, but you're standing over there. This is a meter and a half behind you, but it's landed in a puddle of something impure. And you're praying. the question then emerges, is that actually part of you? Like, of what you're carrying? What do you think?
Yes. Clothes have to be brought into.
Alaikum assalam. Do you think it's part of it is? Do you feel it's
If no, if you're not still wearing it, then it's not part of you.
Well, it's attached to, isn't it?
It may be attached to you.
you see, so this is the interesting debate. So now actually a lot of ulama have said, well, it is attached to you. Now the interesting thing, the way they've said it, and Qadi Iyad has commented on it, and other people, although not in this book but in other books, they say if it continues to move with your movements, like if you're still pulling it along and it's moving behind, then you are kind of carrying it. Okay? Whereas if it's reached such an extent that now, even though you carry on moving, it's just there because it was that long, then it's not really part of you. Which is interesting. It's an interesting analysis. Right, so he says that the clothes you are carrying. Wa khuffun, and obviously the khuffain, safe, the sword. A reason, obviously the sword this was always discussed in the fiqh books because it was something that, people, because they say blood is impure and stuff like this, and so what about cleaning the swords and stuff like this? Obviously when people did undertake military expeditions and stuff like this, the question was that, you see, you wouldn't wash swords because it would damage the sword. So removal of impurity became a fiqhi mas'ala. So, or whatever a person is praying on, as in the ground he's praying on. So the person himself, the clothes or the things he's carrying, and the place he's praying on. Okay, key things. فالنضح يختص بكل ما شك فيه ولم تتحقق نجاسته. That nadah, the sprinkling of water, is to do with whatever a person is doubtful that there may have been some impurity there, but is not certain that there was impurity there. So, except, so that's usually, and then there's a debate, does that include the body, parts of the body, or is that just for clothes and places? How is it? Now, there's a bit of khilaf. The point is that if a person, you see, because sometimes some people would feel, I think there was a bit of impurity here, I don't know, and now because of this doubt, they're like, see, doubt can really destroy people. So the Sharia caters for this psychological angle. So what it does is it says sprinkle. Now, sprinkling is not so burdensome. It doesn't mean you got to wash the whole thing thoroughly, but at the same time it kind of satiates that, almost that type of that paranoia, that psychological urge to say, I need something, I need it washed, no, it's not pure, and it covers that, and it gets you out of that mode. So you're no longer trapped within this type of this waswasa of whether that is impure. Right, okay. نعم.
وأما المص فيختص بثلاثة أشياء: بالدم عن سيف لسقالته ولأن الغسل يفسده، وبأسفل الخف ونعني مما داس من أروث الدواب وأبوالها فإن دلكه بالأرض يكفي، وبسحب المرأة ذيلها على الأرض ناجسة فإن سحبها بعد ذلك له على الأرض طاهرة يطهره. واختلف إذا تيقنت النجاسة أو لا، هل يطهرها ذلك أم لا.
Okay, شكرا. وأما المسح فيختص بثلاثة أشياء. So wiping is for three things as well. And note how Qadi Iyad always, when he picks a number, he goes with that number. So whenever he says, okay, things are in fives, that's it, then they go in fives. They're in tens, they go in tens. If he says 3, they're going to go in threes now, all the way. So the last one was 3, this one is 3. I mean, don't be surprised that he runs a number for a while. Now, he mentions this, now we're talking about the wiping. And the sword, like I said, because of it rusting and stuff like this, it has to maintain that, the type of quality of it, therefore to wipe it. The lower part of the khuf, the leather sock, the lower part of it is wiped, or you could say it is wiped, masah. Then he mentions also the shoe. If you've been walking in the streets and stuff, like let's say you've been walking with your shoes and stuff like this, you don't know the chance that you may have walked on impurities and stuff like this, but it's enough for you to just look and just wipe your shoes. Like, you don't need to go start washing your shoes or something. Nobody demands that from you. And then he mentions likewise a woman, if she had a dress that was long, or let's say a long skirt or a long type of abaya or something, which happened to be kind of like reaching the ground as she's walking. So consequently, it was getting, let's say, dirty as she's walking. So because she's walking around, it's obviously, it's hitting the ground here and there. So there's a chance that it may have made contact with impurities, just as the shoes may have made contact with impurities. But in the hadith, when the woman asked the Prophet ﷺ that what about this, the dhaylu thawb, the lower part of the thawb that may be making contact with the ground, the Prophet ﷺ said, يُطَهِّرُهُ مَا بَعْدَهُ, that which comes after it, meaning that let's say you did walk through impure ground, now when you reach pure ground and it's making contact with the ground now, it is cleaning it. One could question that, is it really cleaning it? Is it really cleaning it? I mean, in essence, it may not be really cleaning it. If we're speaking objectively, if we can speak objectively, it won't really clean it. But, you see, what is cleanliness? What is impurities? These things have a shar'i existence, a legal existence. They have an actual existence and they have a legal existence. Okay, so the hissi, which is something which is actual. So for example, a person breaks his wudu, he goes to the toilet. Yeah? There is an actual impurity, something impure. Now, all of a sudden, he needs to do his wudu, which is a shar'i purification. It's not an actual purification, because when he went to the toilet, he doesn't need to now wash his face. Nothing reached his face. He doesn't need to now start washing his feet. There wasn't nothing. So the point is, this is a shar'i purification. It's not a hissi, it's a legal purification. Therefore, the legal thing will override the actual thing. It carries more weight. Okay, so just in case, when this woman is walking, let's say, and her dress has made contact, and the same thing could apply with a man as well. It doesn't have to be. Although the reason the woman mas'ala is asked, say that again. Yeah, because the jilbab would be trailing, so kharaja makhraj al-umum, okay, or al-ghalib. That the question was asked because that is where it would most pertain to, which is women. So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ said, look, the deen is about making things easy. That which comes after it, cleans it. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. Don't think too much of it, because otherwise you're going to become obsessive in trying to clean things. And as we mentioned, at all costs you have to avoid waswasa. Okay. Now, they say there is some ikhtilaf if the woman was certain, if she knew this particular spot on this, let's say on this abaya, on this dress, had a specific impurity on it because I walked in it, then is that okay, or does she need to wash that part specifically? And there is some ikhtilaf. For peace of mind, she can wash it if she knew about a specific part. Otherwise, her just walking on it, the hadith has said that the legal requirement has been fulfilled. Okay. نعم.
وأما الغسل فلكل نجاسة تيقنت سواء ما ذكرناه، فإن أمكن المصلي طرح هذا النجس عنه أو بعدها منه، وإلا تعين عليه فيه فرضان: الأول إزالة عينه بالأرك وموالة الصبع حتى لا يبقى له طعم ولا لون ولا رائحة، إلا أن تكون نجاسة لها صبغ أو قوة رائحة ولا يذهبها ذلك فيغفى عن أثر لونها وريحها. والثاني إزالة حكمه، وذلك أن يغسله بالماء المطهر دون غيره.
شكرا. وأما الغسل أو غسل. What's the difference? What's the difference between غسل and غسل? ما شاء الله. Right. Come on, guys. غسل غسل. شعبان. غسل غسل. Right. Ghusl is the bathing, the actual bath of washing yourself. Ghusl is to wash something, like you could be washing a thing, you could be washing anything, that's ghusl. And ghusl is the actual, the ghusl that you take, like the bath or the shower. Alright, so it could be both in a way, ghusl or ghusl, perhaps more ghusl, right? But the thing is, for لِكُلِّ نَجَاسَةٍ تُيُقِّنَتْ, for every impurity that you are certain of, except what has already been mentioned, you must wash it, ghusl. فَإِنْ أَمْكَنَ الْمُصَلِّ طَرْحَ هَذَا النَّجَسِ, if the person praying can remove this impurity, أو بعده منه وإلا وإلا تعين عليه فيه فرضان. Right, so if the person can remove, like imagine there was an impure thing that you can totally remove. If you can't, there are two things that become obligatory. The first is you have to remove that thing by, if you can scrape it off, I don't know, whatever it is, eliminate its essence from what you have. Now that he does mention that, imagine if that meant like you got to wash, let's say you got a cloth, you got to wash the cloth, you got to wash it. It would mean to remove the actual qualities of, when I say qualities, let's say something had spilled here and now it left a stain. You would remove, make sure its color, its existence, its effect or impact, or any visibility of it has gone. Okay. Now the only way that would then be excused if it was extremely, let's say for some reason it couldn't wash away. Like let's say blood, if it got on something and you're washing it now, but it's still leaving a certain color on a particular bright white cloth. It doesn't make a difference as long as you've washed it, you've taken off a lot of it, even if it's gone, let's say pinkish or whatever, it's left a certain athar, that's okay. A trace is not a problem, it's negligible. The other obligation is you must use pure water whilst doing this. What do we call pure water? Yeah, and the Arabic for it? Ma tahir mutahhir or ma mutlaq. Okay, so, or sometimes they can call it tahur as well. Tahur, tahir, mutahhir, mutlaq. Guys, I'm going to start asking you these questions now. I realize, floating. So, okay, وأما الاستجمار. نعم.
وأما الاستجمار فيختص بالمخرجين لإزالة البقاع ما خرج منهما عنهما، ولا من طارئ عليهما بالأحجار أو ما يقوم مقامها، وإزالة ذلك بالماء أفضل.
So quick note, istijmar is like we mentioned, people using stones or stuff like this after they've been to the toilet. In this day and age, people using paper. Okay. I mean, obviously in certain parts of the world, this was where, obviously in that time as well, where there wasn't. And so where people would just go, they would just use, basically they would improvise by using stones and stuff like this to make sure they're clean. And that is valid within the Sharia. Just as it is valid today. It's not like that it wasn't by necessity. I mean, maybe it was initially brought in due to necessity, but it wasn't restricted to necessity then. Once it was brought in, it was okay. So people using paper, toilet paper today is absolutely fine. But it's better to combine it with water. Okay, to use water as well is much better. It's not wajib or necessary that you have to use water, but it's better to use water. Naam. What sifatul mustajmar bihi thamanin. That okay, the things that you use for istijmar. Istijmar is what popularly you guys might know as istinja. Istinja is a more generic term, like you have a general term, and istijmar is a specific term in that, and istibra is a specific term in that. So istijmar is specifically using something like an object like stones or something. Istinja just means trying to get clean. Okay, so na'am.
وصفات المستجمر به ثمان أن يكون طاهرا جامدا منفصلا منقيا ليس بسرف ولا مطعوم ولا ذي حرمة ولا فيه حق للغير.
Shukran. So the things, and this is common sense really, what you can use for istijmar, or basically that it's pure, it's a solid, it's something separate, it's something that purifies, it's not extravagant, it's not extravagant, so well, Andrex, the super quilts, be extravagant, but the thing is it's not food, like an edible item, it's not the hurma, and what they mean by that as well is something, like if there's certain papers but they had religious writings on there, or if they had certain things, and they mention it because it gets ridiculous. But the question is that, you see, at times people had, like we say now, well, obviously we've got toilet paper, well, which we do, and so people had paper. I mean, they had paper for centuries, and the question then was, and people did use paper at times, and then the question was, well, people used paper from old books at times, like that. Let's say they had paper, they all got loads of these books, don't really use them, and might as well use them as toilet paper. And then you get, I'm not saying it was a common phenomenon, but it wasn't something that never happened. It did happen, and hence you had the fatwa from people even saying, those people who dissed certain books. So for example, some scholars who dissed books of logic and philosophy, or more logic really, and stuff like this, and them saying that, it's permissible to do istinja with these books, like, because it's, like this is they went to that extent to give that fatwa, obviously trying to show their hatred for the science, for logic and stuff like this. But so the point is, can you think of another reason why this debate, the hurma, might have entered this discourse? Like, you can't use something that has sanctity to it. Yeah, but what might they be talking about? Huh? Stone. I don't think that's the tayammum stone you're going to use after you've been to the toilet with it.
Is it to use scriptures of other things?
No, so one was like scripture angle, that maybe you're using paper which has had writing on it in the past, and it may have had even religious words, or so there was that angle, which we just said. What else could have come in here?
Could it be a logical argument that you're using paper to write the Quran on? So it's the actual...
Yeah, but away from the paper thing now, because that was the one we just said. That Israf, no, Israf's already been. That way said saraf. This is the hurma, something.
Is it because it wasn't like a natural thing, like they had to actually produce the paper?
Not paper. Paper one's been, like, we've understood that, okay, paper, the only problem with paper is if it's had writing on it or something which maybe, so that has, what else could have had a discourse of it being a sacrilege? Well, I'm just throwing in as a disco. I'm just.
Dead parts of dead people.
That's quite creative. That's quite creative, I must say.
Bones.
That could be quite creative actually as a bomb. That you're right, and maybe that could be part of the argument as well. Also, I was going to say what could come into here as well, which is a liquid though. But I mean, it's not, but comes in under the hurma thing. Stuff like the concept of using ma'u zamzam.
This is disputed, isn't it?
That could you use something like ma'u zamzam to go to the toilet, like because it's a sacred water, and so it's. And there is, you're right, there's a big debate on that, but I'm just saying, I'm just opening up the discourse for
Wasn't
you.
it the only water available at one point?
For Ibrahim alayhi salam. And yeah, I mean, true, I suppose that could be your argument for saying it is permissible. Yeah, I think generally people won't like it. They definitely,
Out of respect to
yeah, out of the sanctity of like the feeling that obviously this is blessed water. But technically, you see, the thing is, you can wash in ma'u zamzam. So it touching all parts of your body isn't a problem. The only thing is you're not using it here to touch part of it, you're using it to clean away impurities. Yeah. So the thing is that there's that mixed emotion. Do you understand? If you want a definition of mixed emotion, right, that you could throw that in as an example. There'll be mixed emotion, like people will be like, I don't know here. I suppose you could drop in the question using Ganga, the water from the Ganges, but okay.
Nothing left if you use that.
Right, so I meant in a respectful way. Right, so the thing, right, so okay, next one, وَلَا فِي حَقٌّ لِلْغَيْرِ. No.
Okay.
وَلَا فِي حَقٌّ لِلْغَيْرِ. And it couldn't be something which belonged to somebody else. Yeah, obviously it's like, you've got something there, just like take that. And like, you go, where's my phone case gone? Sorry, I just really needed the toilet, so desperate. No, yeah, that would be, yeah, I think, yeah, it'd be a bit borderline, yeah.
What's the difference between tahir and mubqiyan?
Right, okay, because the thing is, it's a good point. He's using this in the same way to say that it purifies, that it is something that gives you naqa, munqi, that it kind of, because I suppose, I mean, it's going to be a debate now, but maybe some objects by their very nature, because this is talking about solids, remember, by their very nature it may be difficult for them to clean something. Maybe they, I don't know, maybe it's, they're difficult to kind of like, to cling to, I don't know, but basically it could be that they're too slippery or they're too something, but it's trying to say something that has the quality to also clean. It's not just talking about it being clean, but it has the quality of cleaning as well, like meaning you could clean with it. It's viable that you can actually clean with it. So, yep, okay. نعم. والسنن إزالة هذه النجاسة.
والسنن إزالة هذه النجاسة من المخرجين 5. استعمال الماء فهو أطيب، وكون الأحجار وترا 3 فما زال، ومباشرة ذلك بالشمال، وأن يستنجي بما نهي عنه
وأن لا يستنجي.
وأن لا يستنجي بما نهي عنه، ولا بروثة ولا بأرة ولا عذب ولا حمم.
جمجمة.
حممة.
Okay, fair enough.
Is that,
I mean,
it says جمجمة in other.
Yeah, no.
أو فهم it says.
No. والاستبراء.
والاستبراء قبل من البول بالنطر والسلت وما أشبهه.
نعم. Okay, so it's going through the sunan of removing these type of impurities, and he just mentions, look, using water. Once again, a lot of these things will be common sense. There is this thing of odd numbers mentioned. The way the school of Medina and even the school of Kufa understood this was that the Prophet ﷺ was encouraging people to use more, to be more clean. It wasn't about getting fixated on numbers. It wasn't about, like, so for example, the Prophet ﷺ said that when you do istijmar, you see, because I tell you what, look, people have a thing of doing things in even numbers. Yeah, like they do something and they follow it up a second time. It's almost human nature. Like I say to you, I wipe this, I wipe it, then you probably wipe it again. Yeah, it's almost a human thing to do. People end up doing things in even numbers quite often. The Prophet ﷺ saying, I tell you what, do them in odd numbers. Meaning, knowing that, you're going to do this once anyway, most likely twice anyway. So what are you going to end up doing now? Exactly, you're going to do it an extra time. You're going to be extra clean. It wasn't about the fixation of being stuck on 3 or being stuck on. So some people took from this, I did istinja, but because I did 4 strokes, my istinja is invalid. Because the hadith said it needs to be in even numbers. And some people actually literally believe that. That's absurd. It doesn't even make sense. It's like, that's not why the Prophet ﷺ said that. And when he said use an odd number, he said use an odd number of stones. Like the people that would use stones. Once again, because he knew, look, you were going somewhere, you've got 2 hands, most likely people are going to pick up 2 stones. This was something that, they're going to pick up more, but at the very least they'll pick up 2 anyway. Saying that use an odd number means you're going to pick up now at least 3, you're going to probably pick up 5, you're going to go for higher. Do you see what I mean? Some people, including actually the Shafi'i madhab, got a bit fixated on the number 3. And no, there must be 3 stones. And it must be about 3, or it must be about 5, or it's not about 3 or about 5. It's about trying to make sure. This is why the Maliki madhab said the asl was naqa. They said it wasn't adad. They said that the asl fil mas'ala is about cleanliness. It's not about numbers. Don't get fixated on numbers, okay? That was just to encourage people. Now, so they mention doing this with the left hand, which is from the sunnah. You not to use things which are prohibited, like we mentioned, like bones and stuff like, you mentioned like maybe like solidified mud or stuff like that. That's just because of its nature in being, because it would just disintegrate and it not being very, you see, this is where we came back to something being munqi, something that is munaqi, that actually cleans as well. And something like mud, although it's pure, it's tahir, but it's not actually munaqi by its very nature. Obviously here he's got jumjuma. I don't think somebody would take a skull along. I'm just going to the toilet, guys. You got another skull lying around. Should really. You got 3 by any chance? No, it says jumjuma. Right, so the thing is, damn, I'm going to need 3. Sorry, guy. Sorry for what? So the thing is, right, now, and you had obviously fahm in there, which was coal, which I don't think you definitely not want to take. Right, so I mean, I don't know, but alhamdulillah, the ulama were getting creative in their thought. So the thing is, istibra' min al-bawl, likewise they mention after a person, one is like if a person had gone to defecation, also urination, if a person had gone to urinate, that they would likewise clean themselves afterwards. And they mention that, they would do a thorough job in doing so. But a quick footnote there, that being careful, it is important to draw that balance between doing a thorough job and becoming obsessive. You want to stay away from being obsessive at all costs. نعم. وآدابه ومستحباته 5.
وآدابه ومستحباته 5. الجمع بين الأحجار والماء، والبداية بالقبل قبل الدبر، والصب الماء لليد قبل مباشرتها للنجاسة، ودلكها بالأرض بعد تمام ذلك لإزالة الرائحة، وأن لا يستنجي بالماء على الموضع الحدث أو مكان سلب ناجس لئلا يتطاير عليه من الغسالة.
Shukran. These adab, to be fair, probably don't apply to many of us in our given context today. Okay, so you know this thing like having stones, having, well, obviously, like the main thing is, look, these are etiquettes, and a lot of people understand these as common sense anyway. That look, try and use water, try and purify in a particular way. They say that if you've been to the toilet, urinate and defecate, maybe begin by cleaning the urine and then with the defecation, and they're saying that pour water over and so on, and they mention things like like how to kind of make sure your hands are clean and so on, and wash your hands, and even like, you see, for people, obviously we are in bathrooms today. It's very different. Our whole world kind of is quite different. Out there in the open, it was a bit different. So where people didn't have a quick sink next to them, like if they wanted to wash their hands and stuff like this, so they would show things like, look, if you didn't have water, to kind of like how to kind of clean your hand on the earth with dirt and stuff like this, and these are all cleansing methods which people throughout the world in several rural parts of the world still would use. So these type of things obviously make sense, that don't kind of use water where you have, obviously, if you're on soft ground, or rather even on firm ground, but you've just urinated right there, then obviously it's going to splash back on you, and these type of things are common sense. Okay, there was a good question that our Ustad here, Shaykh al-Qawm, had asked, that since the hadith mentions that a person should not urinate in stagnant water, and there happens to be stagnant water within the toilet, so are you literally violating the hadith by urinating into stagnant water? Right, so what would you think? Astaghfir munkar al-hadith. Okay, all right. Why would you say no? Yeah, I do believe you're absolutely correct, but why do you? Because apparently you are violating the hadith, but at the face of it.
Yeah, but
So,
the thing is, it's not really stagnant, because once you flush it goes
But-
to the system.
but I suppose it is stagnant when you're looking at it. It's stagnant.
But that water serves no other purpose though.
Ah,
I'll tell you something, seriously,
yeah, seriously.
there's no difference from that water in
Yeah.
the toilet.
Yeah.
There is no beauty in the tap water. Huh?
Yeah, but
There's no
yeah,
difference.
yeah. Obviously, same water supply.
You can drink that water.
Obviously, I wouldn't recommend it, but you
You
can.
won't drink it, but you can drink it.
You can, yeah. Obviously, it's got the same water supply. Meaning, it's got the same supply. Obviously, you haven't got a separate pipe coming in just for your toilet, right? So, the thing is, you see that you, Nav, repeat what you said.
I said the water has no other purpose. That's what it's there for.
Excellent. You see, the Sharia revolves on objectives, on things being functional, on things being purposive, the purpose of something. Now, water serves a purpose. It cleans, it provides you something to drink, it quenches thirst, it is the source of life. It does things. Animals in several rural parts of the world will drink from it. People will drink from it. People will clean from it. Outside, this water has a purpose. The water in the toilet, the only purpose of it is for you to go to the toilet in it. That is its purpose.
We're
It does,
hearing otherwise now.
say that again.
We're hearing otherwise now.
No, it does have. No, we're not talking about it being potentially. Like, you could potentially take it out. I mean, I'm sure if it's, if it's clean, then it is clean. But the point is that particular water at that point is just for that purpose. Therefore, the objective doesn't clash with the objective of the hadith. So you note what you guys are doing now is you are studying a hadith and you are seeking its inner objectives and then applying it to a situation and saying that although the apparent of this hadith does fit on this situation, but the objective doesn't fit there, therefore this hadith doesn't apply. So it's very interesting. So you guys are already doing that to understand that how people interpret laws and texts. Naam. So that's adabul istinja. Naam. Adabul ihdath qablahu 20 adaban.
آداب الإحداث قبله 20 أدبا إبعاد المذهب للغائط في الصحراء وحيث تتعذر الجدران بحيث لا يرى.
What I'll do as well is I'll kind of go through, because there's 20, and this is going to be very similar to what we've just said, that a lot of these things won't really apply so much to people today, but they'll be common sense anyway, if the need ever be. So I'll quickly kind of glance through a lot of them. Things like they say ib'ad al-madhab lil-gha'it, or I mean, there's different. Quite often, people would use the word madhab as well, like in the hadith. إذا ذهب, speaking about the Prophet ﷺ, in Abu Dawood, إذا ذهب المذهب فأبعد. That when the Prophet ﷺ would go to the toilet, he would go like out of like a distance. Right, meaning like he would go out as people would. But obviously today, and it mentions in deserts that you would go quite far where there ain't things like walls and people can't see you. وَلَا يُسْمَعُ لَهُ صَوْتٌ وَالْبَوْلِ بِحَيْثِ يَسْتَتِرْ وَيَأْمَنْ سَمَاعُ. And this whole thing about where people can't see you and they can't hear you and they can't disturb you, and this whole thing, and you wouldn't, and you choose a suitable place of the earth that it's acceptable for that, and you wouldn't. It does mention that you wouldn't urinate standing up, but within the school of Medina, it is not sinful or anything to urinate standing up. Okay, it is permissible. In fact, in the Mudawwana, where Imam Malik is asked, can a person urinate standing up? He says yes, as long as it's not going to be kind of like splashing back on himself. That's fine. He says that it doesn't have a problem. It's nothing wrong with that. I know that the Hanafi madhab sees it as almost makruh tahriman, almost like it sees it as almost sinful without a reason, but that's not the same in the school of Medina. So, and also they mention things about how you become uncovered and so on, that you go to a certain place where you're allowed to do that. Once again, a lot of these things don't apply too much because of the settings we have today. If you are out in the open, not to be facing the Qibla and not to be kind of with your back like directly to the Qibla whilst trying to go to the toilet. In the open space, not in toilets or bathrooms. And one of the wisdoms perhaps to this is that you see in open places, especially like they mentioned fi Sahara, like in deserts, especially at that time, you see, you never know, like somebody, I know it may seem crazy, but somebody, because it's open, they may actually be praying. They may actually, because it's an open place, isn't it? You don't know who's where. It's an open space. Somebody, because remember, what we got to remember is deserts weren't like, where they lived weren't like mountains and stuff. They lived in desert, this type of land, which is quite often a plain. Okay, although I'm sure there were certain ups and downs here and there, but it was quite a bit of a plain as well. From when you read about certain things, about the way they used to see sunset and the ways they would see sunrise and stuff like this. Now, obviously, that's perhaps one of the wisdoms, Allahu A'lam, that if you could offend people, that people could be coming, and remember, you could be going to the toilet, you're unaware, somebody could just be traveling. In the distance somewhere, they could kind of be stopping. I know it's a desert, let's pray. Think, what the hell? What's that guy doing? And so this whole thing of this courtesy, but once again, it doesn't really apply within our social context. So they mention things about not going to the toilet under trees and stuff like this, and this isn't because of the fact that a jinn lives there, right? It's not because of that. You don't need to worry. It's because that. Why is it? Exactly, because people would like to rest under trees, okay? Especially hot places, they like to take a seat, sit down in the shade. Obviously, if that's what you've used to, to go to the toilet, then it's not going to be very...
So you can't definitely get a urinate under the shelter, you've got to go blazing sunlight.
No, you could go under shelter, but not where people are going to come right after you and take a seat, right? So
Not on a bus shelter.
not at a bus stop, right? So these type of things basically. Then there is the mas'ala of can you say Bismillah? There is the dua Bismillah, A'udhu Billahi min al-khabathi wal-khaba'ith, or min al-khubthi wal-khaba'ith. Both ways it can be read. Now, and when you leave, you say Ghufranak, which is seeking forgiveness. You can, according to the school of Malik, say the name of Allah within a bathroom or within a toilet. There's no such thing that you cannot do that. Okay, it doesn't even really make sense because the toilet it's just an arbitrary room that you've decided to be the toilet. So like for example, if this part here was the toilet now, let's say we had a toilet right here from where you're sitting to here. There's a toilet in there. Now we knock down. So then sitting here, I could say Bismillah or I could say Alhamdulillah. But if I'm inside that door, then I can't say it. So now we knock this wall down. So now all of this becomes a toilet. So all of a sudden I can't say it here anymore. It doesn't really make any sense. So what does make sense is if you're going to the toilet, as in the actual act of relieving yourself, then you don't mention Allah's name. But otherwise, a toilet room doesn't have any prohibitions per se. Okay.
You know when you say the dua for going to the toilet, should you step in with your left foot? How do you know which one's the bathroom? How do you know when you're stepping with your left foot?
What do you mean, how would you know which one's the bathroom? Where are you going to? Where are you accidentally going?
No, as it doesn't it?
I
you have
suppose
to
it's saying if
define-
you're in an open space.
Put your left foot in the toilet.
No, but his point is,
What's your right foot outside the door?
Where you make the basmala,
Before
and
you
you
say
don't make the basmala. then
Like what if you slip in? Like you fall over? Left hand is in the toilet.
Take your next step to the left hand.
You see, the thing is this, that look, obviously if it's an open space, then there's nowhere to say, like you don't enter with this. I'm not sure whether he hasn't mentioned here the left foot and the right foot thing. He hasn't said that here. I'm not sure if that is in a Sahih hadith, by the way, because obviously in the past they didn't have toilets. So I'll be really curious as to what hadith they based that on, because since they didn't have toilets anyway, so what, like when you set off in the desert, like you just said left foot first because I'm going to the toilet, it doesn't really make sense. But what there is the hadith that when you were about to relieve yourself, you would the dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith, and once a person had finished and was leaving that space, whatever it was, they would say ghufranak.
He actually says when you're entering the khala, in the qudi.
أو عند قعودها أو عند قعوده, or when a person sits down to so meaning exactly, so when a person is absolutely ready but hasn't began to kind of like what is about to begin, he says the dua quickly and begins like that. Do you see what I'm, so there isn't this putting your left foot in first and your right foot in second and doing all of that. It doesn't really make too much sense. Okay. نعم. والنجاسات المتكلم
Also, you don't say salam or respond to salam.
right, okay. مثل أن لا يحدث على حدثي ولا يسلم عليه ولا يرد. Okay, you don't say, this is during the actual act of not like returning salam and stuff like. Obviously the thing is, there is generally, obviously most ulama would accept during the act of relieving yourself that you don't mention Allah's name. And obviously in Assalamu alaikum, there is the ikhtilaf that is the word As-salam here the name of Allah, as Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh had interpreted it to mean, as opposed to the word peace, because one of the names of Allah is Salam as well. So Assalamu alaikum, that Allah is above you, like the whole peaceful sense of Allah. So that understanding. So therefore, you don't say salam during, but you can say afterwards.
So you can talk during that act.
You shouldn't in general, but it's not. He mentions that obviously wala yuhaddithu ala hadithi, but this is from the adab. This isn't forbidden, but it doesn't mean you have to become a mute. Like if you had to speak, like imagine a person said, "Are you in the toilet?" "I'm in the toilet," and you're like. The person like, quick, I need to know. You're like, I can't speak. Like, no, you can speak. No, I mean you could even just say, yeah, like there's nothing wrong in that. It's not like
Is that just what do you think?
no, like because there's nothing. The question is that
the angels stay outside.
yeah, there is that hadith that the angels stay outside, but I'm not sure about the validity of that hadith. But there is this hadith which I've seen it being quoted about that when a person enters the toilet. But once again, or rather you'd say when he begins the act, because obviously the question would be, first of all, what is the toilet that he's entered? Because the people that normally quote is that when he enters the toilet. I mean, my understanding, I would believe that you could talk. I don't believe it's haram, although it's perhaps better not to, but I don't believe it's haram to talk. It's from the adab, even as he's got here, this is from the adab al-ihdath.
What about this ayah
Yeah.
So what I'm doing here in the study circle, he mentioned that some of the people in the past,
Mhm.
they would, in order to use that time properly,
Oh yeah.
they would get their students to narrate stuff to them while they're in the toilet.
In fact, they actually mentioned that about people like even Ibn Taymiyyah, if I recall correctly, that he would have people read things to him and stuff like that, and just so they don't stop learning, like, or even whilst they're going to the toilet, like almost. Sorry. No, they wouldn't probably respond. But you're right in your question. The other, I'll tell you the other answer is that Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, radiallahu anhu, or a great tabi'i, who had his own, although from the lesser tabi'in, but a great person, great scholar, and he has his own school of law, which goes on to influence the school of Abu Hanifa. But his madhab regarding this, of going to the toilet, was that a person could even say Allah's name during the act. Because he said, and he quoted the verse, وَلَعْمَ and the verse about يَرْفَعُهَا, that there's a verse that, and those, in the pious actions, Allah raises them. And he uses that verse to say that whatever is good, Allah will raise it above, so it'll kind of go anyway. It won't be here. And he uses that as a proof to say that you could even say Allah's name during the act.
Because they say
No, he wasn't encouraging, but it was more to do with the salam, I think. And also,
so habituated to making dhikr.
they do say that as well. So, but I mean, I'm not saying that's popular, but what I am saying is that.
You know this concept of adhan, back in those days where it was like a nasty thing, you got to do quickly, run, make sure you're clean. But today, look at the context. Look at today, you've got a cushioned seat, it's actually a chair.
You've got
you sit
cushioned
on.
seats.
Of course, like you've got the piping music and it's nice chill and you sit there.
Okay.
No, do you know what I mean? So it's no longer seen as like. No, do you know what I mean? It's no longer seen as like, oh my god, so you can actually talk and.
I don't think, to be fair, I don't even think they saw it as this, oh, you can't do this. I like, even they see this not talking as from the adab. As you can see, Qadi Iyad here putting this from the adab, what is it? He's not putting this from the wajib or the mamnu'at or something that's forbidden. He's saying from the adab, وَلَا يُحَدِّثْ عَلَى حَدَثِ, like whilst he's, he doesn't talk whilst he's like relieving himself, is from the etiquettes.
But you yourself, you haven't come across that actual hadith apart from quotation.
I mean, I've come across people saying it. I haven't.
There is a big dispute about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've recognized that there is the general perception amongst people is that it's forbidden. This is the general perception. My understanding is that may have a huge amount to do with pop fiqh as well, like as opposed to actual fiqh. But you're right, there are these ahadith that I have heard. I would imagine that they would have some problem with them, the way people are, like by the wordings that I've heard. I don't know about in the Arabic. I've heard them as in saying when you enter the bathroom. Obviously, that in itself, once you hear something like that straight away, you realize, wait a minute, this is going to be maybe a bit.
That angel one does make sense, doesn't it? That they stay out for you to go relieve yourself. And once you say something, they have to come in.
I have to knock. For
That's very nice.
That angel one, though, think about it, really, truly.
Right, so the thing is, so if you don't say anything, you're all right.
Yeah.
Right, but the thing is, yes and no. Like okay, maybe if it's true, if the hadith is sahih, then obviously ala ra'si wal ayn. If it's not, then obviously we'll have to investigate the hadith and see the kalam on it and stuff like that. But right now, because I don't have that in front of me, well, leave that aside. What he's saying here is it's just from the etiquettes. It's not haram. Okay, so you could talk if you had to. Okay, so if somebody talks to you, I'm not saying you have to have a full-on conversation all the time. But you can, like, if somebody talks, you can respond. It's not like sometimes. Yeah, you could answer the phone. You could answer the phone if you had to. Like, let's say somebody's calling you, you say. So I mean, I'm just saying. Imagine it was a very important call. You're like, so.
You could possibly cheat the angels by just staying there for hours and hours, innit?
They don't realise.
Mrs. Alana.
Oh, we combine them.
They're like. What's going on? Why is the person?
Because the angel on the shoulder always with you. So,
They're the angels that stay out.
Yeah.
so they got like ratings now.
So they don't know what you're doing in the
They're
bathroom.
the ones that.
So
Okay.
if you want to do something bad,
Do it in the bathroom.
But don't speak while he's doing it. Don't say it.
Okay, but I suppose then the question, well, what if you're a mute? Right, but okay. So, right, والنجاسات المتكلم على زوالها 5 أنواع متفق عليها. نعم.
الأول
So the impurities which must be removed are of 5 categories and which are agreed upon. Now, the first,
كل خارج من سبيلين من بني آدم وما لا يؤكل لحمه من الحيوان.
right, okay, so every, an impurity that is passed through the passage, the orifice, for Bani Adam, when they go to the toilet, or an animal which is not edible, like a haram type of, I say haram, but obviously in the Maliki madhab they're not really considered, there ain't many which are totally haram, they're makruh usually, but what isn't eaten. Now he does say, I thought he might have expanded, he hasn't. Okay, na'am.
الثاني والدماء كلها وما في معناها ويتولد عنها من قيء وصديد من الحي أو ميت ويخفى عن يسيرها واختلف في يسير الدم الحي منها.
Okay, now the thing is that blood is considered impure. They say all of it and whatever it gives rise to, as in like if it kind of became, obviously, I don't know, like if it kind of clotted up and became something and turned into all this other, I don't know, like pus and stuff like this, it would all be impure. Now, they mention, however, small quantities of it are negligible, and then there is the debate, and it includes small quantities of even menstrual blood as well is negligible. But generally they're saying blood in large quantities or in, beyond negligible quantities is considered impure. The thing is that now on a personal note, I've always kind of struggled with, not always, but for many years, have struggled with the concept, with trying to kind of comprehend the impurity of blood. And I've looked in Athar and I've looked for stuff, and I personally, as this is a personal, and that's why I've clarified there that the position is that blood, all of it is impure, and except that a small amount is negligible. The small amount that is negligible is considered tahir, is considered pure. Okay, so that people like Ibn Abd Salam and other people have written. In my understanding, this is my personal understanding, I do feel that blood is pure. I don't feel blood is impure. I don't feel that there's any clear dalil from the Quran or Sunnah to show that blood is impure. The things that they use, that حُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمُ الدَّمُ, that the things that blood has been made haram for you, that is clearly speaking about consumption. And this necessary tie or correlation between impurity and prohibition. So anything that is prohibited must be impure, right, is quite an assumption. And although it does occur in many places, but I don't believe that's necessary. I don't believe the reason blood was made haram to drink was because it was impure. That was the reason, because it was obvious, it was outlawed for it not being something deemed humane. It was not deemed, and it was seen as you could say almost a paganistic ritual, which they used to kind of drink the blood of certain things as offerings to the gods and stuff like this, and this was all outlawed. And hence the ulama say, but that's a different mas'ala, by the way, on the side note. When I say the small amount of blood is negligible, those ulama, even from the Malikiya, and I've commented on this on Facebook in the past as well, that they do say that small amount is actually pure. So if somebody had a small cut or something and they put it in their mouth and drank that blood, that small amount, that is actually pure. That isn't haram. That even according to the madhab. That's not just my understanding. But in beyond negligible amounts, my personal understanding is that generally there's nothing to say blood is haram or najis.
What's negligible?
You see, that's a good question because they don't define it clearly. But what some people have tried to define it by saying something like, I don't know, like they say, like, you know, like the old dinar or whatever, which is almost just smaller than, like they say, you know, if you drew like a circle within the palm of your hand, like that type of circle that would almost reach is what would be negligible. Some people have said like that type of an amount. Other people have critiqued that quantity and said, look, why are you... But generally that is the quantity that they mention in a lot of fiqh books. Like they would say the size of that type of dirham al-baghli, what they used to call it. And it was quite large. But when I say quite large, I mean it was about that much. But more than, like if a person was bleeding... yeah, almost, yeah. Like almost like something like if you could...
Bigger than a 50 pence piece?
Yes, bigger than a 50 pence piece. Like, I mean, no, I mean if it was just... Not saying...
Not a gushing hole.
Not gushing hole like that much. Now what we're talking about, if a certain amount of blood was to cover that much area, that much blood isn't considered like... You see, like pouring blood is I mean, that's clearly not negligible. Because anything that's gushing or pouring or, you know, like that profusely, we're talking about if blood was to be cover that much of an area, that's it. That would be negligible. It wouldn't be considered so much. You got to remember as well, in the lifestyles that those people lived, quite often they would be bleeding, and so it wasn't something which was, and this is the thing, you see, because many of the Sahaba prayed in blood and stuff like this, and this is obviously supports the opinion as well that blood isn't impure.
So does bleeding break wudu?
Because according to most of the madhabs, bleeding doesn't break wudu. It's only the Hanafi school that understands bleeding to break wudu, and so.
When they prayed in, like with blood or cuts and stuff, wasn't that only during like
Battles and stuff like this.
or was
Yeah,
that-
generally during battles. But the thing is,
After the battle's over, they're still bleeding for a few days, aren't they?
Until the dog.
no, but the thing, it's
Until the dogs.
until they just run out of blood.
Unless they're cauterized.
It goes on the bright side. You're not bleeding anymore. But on the hello. Uh-oh. So it's like, so the thing is that so just to clarify that, look, in my understanding, I don't feel that because the consumption of blood, to drink blood like the way, like, you know, like let's say vampire blood drinking rituals, these things are haram. Okay? You couldn't drink blood like that.
What's the hobby drink of this blood? Is that in the Shifa of Qadi Iyad?
Yeah, I mean, there are riwayats
Open
for,
evidence of that.
yeah, and the thing is that there is, yeah, and the thing is that obviously they said that was you're right, I mean, that could be A, in support of those people who say blood is pure, but B, it obviously generally follows along the line that the Prophet ﷺ was exempt from that ruling anyway. But normally you wouldn't drink normal blood. Like if there was, let's say you'd been bleeding in a container and there's like a container of blood, it wouldn't be permissible for you to just drink that. Like that would be impermissible because of it being, and perhaps its initial outlawed or it being the initial prohibition was to do with its being used for pagan worship and stuff like that. Okay, so that's perhaps the reason why it initially was, and Allahu A'lam. However, does that mean it's impure? Now, this is why, and the reason when I first came across this research was in a contemporary text to do with blood transfusion. And the problem in if you believed it to be impure, that how you're giving somebody else an impure type of thing. And then the scholar who argued for it to be pure and the arguments that he brought. And the interesting thing is, you see, when you look at things like Imam al-Shawkani and other ulama that had argued that, look, al-asl, and even the Maliki accept this as a principle, that al-asl fil a'yan at-tahara, that the a default ruling in things by essence is that they are pure. So things in essence always take a pure ruling unless they are overturned and they are turned impure. So now when you look at things like blood, which is like really the source of life within us, and we are full of it, and not actually that much, 8 liters or whatever, but the thing is that now, why would it be impure? Like, I mean, because this is the question that the ulama say, because the question then could be asked about, well, what makes things like urine and defecation, what excrement, what makes that impure then? Because that question could be asked, like valid, because once you open up the table, you open it up for everything, isn't it? The ulama tend to say that things, they say al-istihala ila taqadhur. They say that if something has changed to a way that it brings disgust through the body, that is usually considered impure. Now, blood doesn't, I'm just saying, if we're following the principle which the ulama have laid out anyway, it could be questioned that this principle is arbitrary anyway. But yes, there are hadith to demonstrate that urine and that is impure. So we have it through the textual basis. But also we have this principle which says that any type of thing that has any consumption or anything that is emitted by the human body, where there has been change ila to the point that it has led to disgust, there is impurities. Here we begin to investigate, well, wait a minute, blood isn't like that anyway. People are usually in awe and shock of blood. They're not actually disgusted by usually just blood in itself. Usually blood has a very awe-striking effect on people. Like if you saw a pool of blood here, you'd be like, it would frighten people. It would intimidate them. It would be daunting. It's not the same as saying like it wouldn't be like disgusting in that sense. It might make people sick out of fear, but it wouldn't make them sick out of it being a disgusting sight.
Some people feel like sympathetic towards the person that's really evil.
No, I mean, I was just saying even just blood. I think most people. Right, so yeah, you're right. Some weak people, huh? So the thing is, now, so I thought I'll just share that with you, that I don't, and I think it's worth. I did actually ask that to many of my shuyukh. I asked when I was studying in Ifta, that can you demonstrate to me the impurity or the evidence for the impurity of blood. I then had to then duck the slap that came my way, right? Literally nobody could really, until today I have not seen an answer for that. Right, okay, نعم. الثالث
الميتات كلها وجميع أجزائها ما أضاع ابن آدم المسلمة والسمك وما لا نفس له لسائلة كالذبابة والجرادة والدود ومتولد في الفواكه وشبهه وما عدا الشعر والصوف والوبر ومما لا تحله الحياة.
Right, shukran. Now, the thing here, naam, shukran. All dead, dead type of creatures, or you could say parts of creatures, and that death. Yeah, carrion. Sorry, that's a much better word. Right now, except that he mentions illa ibn Adam, right? Except humans. There is a debate. You see, first of all, we go by the principle within the school of Medina, life necessitates purity. Every living thing is pure. Is a dog pure?
Yes.
What about a pig?
Yes.
Allah's creature. Oh, Mu'adh. Can you? Right. Not because it's Allah's creature necessarily. I mean, yes, obviously it's from the creation of Allah, but what's the principle?
Because you wouldn't make anything
No, what's the principle?
Well, that's good.
Well, that life necessitates purity. You're right. I understand you're going from a philosophical angle, but but then we're not trying to entertain, because obviously the only contention with philosophical angles is that then they will have counter-philosophical discussions to them, okay? But right now we're just going with a principle, a legal principle, like an axiom, okay, within Sharia, within Islamic law, that look, life necessitates purity. So it's simple. We're not going from the theological perspective of trying to say, well, why would Allah do this anyway? And then He would do that. You see, we're not trying to question certain things. We're just saying where there's life, there's purity. Full stop. Even if it's a pig, Right, so is it alive? It's pure. If it's dead, it's considered impure. Even if it's any animal. Okay? Apart from those things, they say that don't have flowing blood through them generally. They mention things like flies and so on and stuff like this, and locusts, and these things don't, apparently the blood flow isn't the way other creatures are. So, sorry? You can eat locusts, yeah.
It's not pure.
No, it's not impure, meaning it's pure, even if it's dead. So everything when it's dead, you see,
What were you saying about the blood?
the blood. No, what they've mentioned is those things which don't have flowing blood, they remain pure even if they die. So, like a fly or something like this doesn't have, like, they consider these things to be still. I'm not sure if, from a biological perspective, today, if whether these things have a certain amount of blood circulation or how it works, but these. The terms used in these legalistic documents in the past was mala damalahu sa'ila, that whatever it translates as having flowing blood. I'm not sure if that is today medically the same thing we're talking about, but these creatures that they've listed remain pure, like things like flies, mosquitoes, stuff like, or and I think a lot of these. No, he hasn't mentioned mosquitoes. Things like flies, locusts. They mentioned fish in there as well. Then there is a debate about, do fish have blood in that sense or not, and what's the whole debate on that. So the point being that if an animal, we're not talking about making it halal, because that, if you made a particular animal halal, then it remains pure because of the process by which it now died. Otherwise, a dead animal on its own, a dead creature, is impure. Okay. Unless, right, not the creature, the leather. The leather. So now the creature would be impure, as would the thing with it. So the skin, the hide would be impure, stuff like this. Unless you then tan it or you clean it. By cleaning it, the leather, the hide would become pure. And generally, the Maliki madhab believes that all hide, the popular opinion is all hide except pig becomes pure, and according to Sahnun, even pig becomes pure. So the thing is that because the hadith is am, kullu ihabin qad dubigh faqad tahur, kullu ihabin dubigha faqad tahur, every hide that has been cleaned or has been tanned has attained purity. Okay, so just to kind of clarify that, you could obviously, he mentions things like, so when I said about the blood, something being bloodless in the way, it doesn't have flowing blood. He mentions things like small worms and stuff like this. And part of the reason of mentioning this as well is that these things were at times found in food. They were found in stuff like, like if a person had a fly, for example, on them, and maybe they've kind of like swatted it, whatever, and it's kind of like, that's it, it's died, or it's still on them. It's not considered, I mean, it would be negligible anyway, but it's not considered impure. Okay, right, now Aina wasalna. Right, okay, that doesn't include, by the way, Tariq, could you take out you okay to take out the cat? Yeah. Cool. So Right, so the thing is, right, that said, that doesn't include.
I don't think you realise.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, don't worry. Something jump on me.
I won't jump.
Right, so that doesn't include, by the way, stuff like hair or wool or fur, stuff like that. Okay, that is considered still pure. Unlike some of the other madhabs that do consider the hair to become impure as well, like the Shafi'iyya, some of their opinions is that if hair falls dead, it does become impure. That's quite an extreme opinion, really.
I thought it was dead anyway.
Yeah, but no, but the thing is that sorry, I used the word dead, but if it falls off, no, it's not dead in the sense it has growth and it is growth.
When it comes out, the rest is dead. Nothing is flowing through it, or it's not.
Yeah, it's not flowing through, but because it's a part of the creature or the human. So what happens is, you see, generally, the Malikiya consider it pure, as do the Hanafiya, but I was saying the Shafi'iyya in one qawl, they actually consider hair to be najas, like if it falls off. So because generally people will say a part of a living creature, when it is separate from, like if it's been taken apart from something living, therefore it no longer has life in it, it will be impure. They have that as a rule, but then they say things like hair we're not talking about, we're talking about like limbs and stuff like this. But the Shafi'iyya say no, they include hair in that as well. So just to kind of let you know. Na'am. Al-Rabi'.
So if something's impure, what does that actually mean? Is it impure to eat, or what if you touch it, do you become impure?
No, you don't become impure by touching it.
Then
Like,
it's not broken, it's just a dead body.
no. Like,
Couldn't pray with it.
they do say that people are not necessarily. There's debate about people. Do they actually become impure, or do they remain pure? And the ghusl that is given to them at death is just a ritual. So there is a debate. But by touching or handling impurities doesn't mean you're impure. And it obviously you can't eat impure things. But it doesn't, like in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ walked past and there was, I believe, were they sheep or goats, but there were these two type of carcasses, dead animals, and the Prophet ﷺ said that هَلْ انْتَفَعْتُمْ بِهَا, and apparently they'd been there for I don't know how long, but it wasn't like it just died, it'd been there for a little, because the Prophet ﷺ says to them, oh, if only you'd actually taken benefit from them. And they said, yeah, but they're dead. And the Prophet ﷺ said, yeah, but he said, وَإِنَّمَا حُرِّمَ أَكْلُهَا. Because they said, Ya Rasulullah, إِنَّهَا مَيْتَةٌ. It's carrion, it's dead meat. The Prophet said, yeah, but the only thing made haram was its food, like eating it. Meaning you can still take its hide and you can still take it and benefit from it. Now there is huge ikhtilaf. I want to say there is a reasonable ikhtilaf on this as well, but generally you can take benefit from them. Okay, so, and there is the mas'ala of what if there is a dead animal, but it has, like, if it was a pregnant animal that had another, like a baby within it, then the general ruling is that you should kind of take out the other animal if you can. Although some had gone to the extent to say no, because it's dead, now it's an impure vessel, an impure vessel cannot, it's gonna, which is so, like, sometimes people, sometimes they really lose the spirit of what they're on about. To the extent that, when that's the mas'ala, the famous mas'ala of, like, if a woman had died with a baby in her that was viable to actually take out, like if it was the baby's like in its final stages, but the mother's died. Then there's khilaf amongst the ulama, like strong khilaf on, like, no, you shouldn't take out the child, because the thing is that could you kind of like do an operation, post-mortem operation, like whatever, mother's dead, but can you take out the child? And many, in fact, I believe it's actually the stronger opinion, Allahu a'lam, in the Shafi'i madhab, isn't it, that you can't actually take out, because it's one of the reasons that they say Imam Tahawi kind of gave, this is what they say, that why he became Hanafi. They say one of the reasons he gave is he said that because this was actually with him, his mother had actually died, and some of the people was saying that, the question, but obviously they took him out. Like, but the point is that obviously they took him out.
Afterwards, when he became Hanafi, wasn't he? Was I should have left him in.
So he had said at one point, like, this is what's transmitted from him, that how can I be part of a madhab that would have wished my destruction? Like, meaning that would have said,
He was a Shafi'i.
because he was originally a Shafi'i, and then he switches madhabs and becomes, and
No
he
one's ever done that since then, have they?
to the Hanafi thing, right? So, right. So the thing is, but this mas'ala surprisingly is actually a bit of a debate. In the Maliki madhab, it is permissible, obviously, to take out the child, even though you still find debate and discussion within it. I think, if I recall correctly, I think Ibn Qasim kind of like challenges it or something. But I'll clarify the names later on. But the thing is, there is some debate and discussion on it about some people trying to say no, it's like now it's dead and whatever's inside something dead is considered dead, and it's some people, that's where legal reasoning has reasoning isn't the right word, where legalities have kind of completely taken over reasoning, and you only see things through legalities, and that you forget that they're actual real things. So na'am. So الرابع المسكرات كلها قليلها وكثيرها, that all intoxicants that are haram, a small amount or a large quantity, whatever, it's absolutely haram. You couldn't it's impure. This is the general popular opinion. There have been some Malikiyah, beginning with Imam Malik's own teacher actually, Rabi'a, and other people that have said alcohols and intoxicants are haram, but they're not actually impure, just like blood. Like, it's not actually impure. And personally, that is something that I myself as well do believe, that I don't believe that they're necessarily impure, but I think that they are haram. And the dalail, the evidences that they use, is primarily things like first of all, they say that there isn't a clear evidence to prove that it is najas. Secondly, they use the ahadith of Sahih Muslim, where when alcohol was made haram, that the Sahaba spilt it. They mention fi sikakil Medina, in the streets of Medina, and the Medina generally is a haram, and why would they spill something impure in the haram, right? If they knew that this is impure, and now they could go and spill it outside, why would they purposely spill it here? So people use that as a dalil. Amongst them were people like, obviously, Rabi'a, even the student of person who comes after Sahnun, Ibn al-Haddad, and many of the Qarawiyyin of the Malikiyin held this opinion that alcohol obviously is haram, but it's not impure.
Did anyone use it as like some sort of disinfectant or anything like that?
No, people do use it as it has that.
At that time, is there anything recorded to say?
People it's part of it has medicinal type of qualities to it, doesn't it? It has it's like a disinfectant in a way, isn't it? Like, it has some of these sterilizing qualities to it, doesn't it?
What about if alcohol drops on your clothes, then are you required to remove wash it?
Now this is it. Well, if it's according to the popular opinion, yes, because it's impure. Well, if you don't consider it impure, then I suppose it's still good to remove it. But is it an obligation? Like, if you had prayed and there was some, let's say, some stains or effects of it, then it would still be valid, because, do you see what I mean? According to the popular opinion, that's what I'm saying, it's impure, it's not just, so you have to remove it if it's beyond a negligible amount. Right, now, if it...
Based on that, is a pub impure?
wherever there's alcohol spilt, it's impure, yeah. So wherever alcohol, based on that popular opinion, yes.
If it's not spilled, it's fine. Because the Hanafis, pubs are haram, you can't go in, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, that's a different question to it being impure.
Okay.
So that's like more about, because the place is a place which sells alcohol, as opposed to it being impure. It's not obviously, if they spilt it, then alcohol, then according to the popular opinion, it would be impure. Right, okay. They mention here, Khamis, I don't know why you single this out, Labnul Khinzir. A lot of the times they don't single stuff like that out. The interesting thing is, like the milk of pigs, In a lot of the books, to be honest with you, that's not really singled out so often like that. But the thing being that in the Quran specifically, Allah doesn't say khinzir is haram. He says lahmul khinzir. In every verse to do with khinzir, the meat of khinzir. From this, a lot of the ulama have said that even its fur and it, I mean, you know, some of them, the boars, and they can have this type of furry skin to it or whatever, that and other things of it are not impure. And from that, you would understand that it isn't. Some people had even challenged then, what about shahmul khinzir, is it haram? Like to the extent that is, because we know lahmul khinzir is najas as well. Like Allah describes it as a rijs, and like as something which is impure, and but is the fat of pig impure?
There is rich impurity.
That's a different question in itself. That does that word there mean impurity? Does it mean like a conceptual type of foulness or what? But even if you accept it as actual impurity, but the word that is always used whenever khinzir comes is the word lahmul khinzir, the meat of khinzir. Where does that leave the fat or the blood or the leather or the tears or the sweat or the anything else to do with the khinzir? Where does it leave all of that? To be fair, it really wouldn't even include in that understanding as Shawkani kind of presents, and it wouldn't even really include labnul khinzir, the milk of khinzir, although Qadi Iyad has perhaps put it here to clarify, maybe because of this question being asked. He's put it to clarify, oh, it does include, which fair enough, I mean, people don't really drink it anyway, so it's not too much of a problem. He then goes on to say that وَاخْتُلِفَ فِي نَجَاسَةِ خَمْسَةِ أَنْوَاءٍ, that these things, it is debated about whether, or disputed about whether they are impure. في لبن ما لا يؤكل لحمه غير الخنزير, that those things in the milk of those things that are not, those animals which are not consumed, okay, are not eaten. Now, ما لا يؤكل لحمه غير الخنزير, except pig, with the exception because he's mentioned pig to be an exception already. وَبَنِي Adam. Now, the thing is, generally, my understanding, and then he says, وَفِي عَرَقِ السَّكْرَانِ وَفِي عَرَقِ الْجَلَّالَ مِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ وَفِي أَبْوَالِ مَا يُؤْكَلْ لَحْمُهُ مِنَ الْجَلَّالَ مِنْهَا وَفِي مَا وَلَغَ فِيهِ كَلْبٌ أَوْ خِنْزِيرٌ. This is quite interesting actually, because he has certain things here. You know, this thing, first of all, some of the things he's mentioned here in a lot of the other books, they don't actually mention this. A lot of the other major Maliki books. So he's mentioned here, obviously, this is why he's perhaps bringing them in as ikhtilafi. My understanding of this ikhtilaf that he's bringing, Allahu A'lam, is ikhtilaf outside of our madhab. That's my understanding of what he's doing, not within our madhab. But he's bringing them in saying that this is what there has been ikhtilaf about. He mentions the milk of these animals other than pig, like because he's mentioned pig already as out. So, and then he says, because in the Maliki madhab, because like I said, there's very few animals that really can't be eaten. Very few. Because they're either just makruh, most like predatory animals are only makruh in the Maliki madhab, they're not haram. So, it only leaves a small quantity. And then he mentions human milk. Right, is it haram for other than the baby outside of, that's the thing, because which is like the Hanafi type of understanding. It's not the Maliki, in the Maliki madhab it's pure, so it's not actually considered najas or anything. He mentions the sweat of the person who's drunk. Right, once again, not in the Maliki madhab, they mention it's totally pure, but this is from outside of the madhab. There are in the other madhabs, I believe it may actually be in the Hanafi madhab as well, that when, because the person who's drunk and is sweating, they say that because what he's drinking, it adds to the perspiration. Therefore, وَفِي عَرَقِ الْجَلَّالَ مِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ, those animals which are kind of roaming wild, as in, when I say, I don't mean like the wild animals, but like things like chickens and stuff like this, which are normally edible type of animals, but because they're roaming wild, they may be eating impurities. In the Hanafi madhab, in the Maliki madhab, they're absolutely pure to eat. In the Hanafi madhab and other madhabs, you can't actually eat them just like that. So they call them jallala.
Sheikh, sir, is the dog makruh in our knowledge?
The dog, there is ikhtilaf, and generally they would say probably makruh, or they would say, some have said it's haram based on one of the hadith that they fitted in, but otherwise it would be between makruh to haram. Same thing. I mean, they would obviously not, they wouldn't really you see, these things they wouldn't necessarily eat them, but they wouldn't, to declare them haram to eat, you would need a clear text saying that Allah said this thing is haram to eat. So even things like snakes, for example, they're not actually haram in the madhab. The only prohibition that around them is that they may be venomous, and therefore it may be poisonous, and so because of that, as a contingent factor, they may be haram. They're not actually haram per se.
The Koreans have got to have a look.
So I mean, obviously China is just like fertile ground for the Maliki madhab, as you can see. The whole thing, it's but yeah, so this thing of the jallala, then he mentions fi abwali ma yu'kal lahmuhu min al jallala, even like the things like the excrements of those animals or the urine of those animals which are halal to eat, but they roam freely and eat, and from anything, impurities or whatever. Not in the Maliki madhab, they're fine, but in the other madhabs like the Hanafi madhab and in the Hanafi madhab, there's ikhtilaf between the ashab of Abu Hanifa, but there is that qawl that they are impure. Okay. وَفِيمَا وَلَغَ فِيهِ كَلْبٌ, that's popular, that whatever the dog has kind of like drunk from, like whatever it drank from, so if it kind of licks into a bowl, then that water, because of the hadith, but not in the Maliki madhab. In Maliki madhab, it's still pure. But
why is that number 7 given up? Like, why? Surely.
Exactly. Hence the Maliki question that it doesn't make sense that it's impure, because what have numbers
8 or 9.
got to do with anything, and what has one washing it with soil?
One good clean, you can just clean it.
Exactly. And this pig, by extension, you can see some people had added, because they thought, well, if a dog did this, then a pig should be more deserving to be kind of, that was the logical, that was like a qiyas done on that. Right, so with that, people, we've come to the end of Kitab al-Tahara. We will begin, inshallah, next Dars Kitab al-Siyam, which the third pillar. We will once again try and brush through this, with a reasonably swift coverage, trying not to compromise the quality of the text, but at the same time trying to get through it as in a swift way, so we can inshallah move on to take a look at other things as well.
How long do you think the whole text will take?
Now, hopefully not too long.
Do you think we'll finish before Ramadan?
Oh yes, of course, inshallah.
So, because I was just thinking maybe next year until the end, maybe closer to
No, definitely, inshallah,
Can I
definitely.
just ask a question about, like, people say like baby's urine, the food is a male urine is pure if it's on your clothes, but the female urine is not. Is that?
the Shafi'i.
That's the Shafi'i, and the Malikiyya didn't recognize it like that. Neither did the Hanafiya. They base it on this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, that he was given a boy who kind of like urinated, and he did nadah, and like when I spoke of nadah earlier on, like the verb that is used is nadah, to sprinkle water over, and they then said, and there's this hadith from it that which people feel then is a description of that incident, maybe that yughsal bawlul jariya wa yundah, that what is it, bawlul ghulam, that the urine of a boy is kind of nadah, is sprinkled over, whereas the urine of a girl is washed. The Malikiyya didn't accept that as an understanding. They said that particular incident may have been like that, that the person, that the Prophet maybe that the urine that was kind of there, that the sprinkling, what the person describes it as, was perhaps the washing that was required. Because there is no reason to differentiate between the two. It doesn't, like there's no reason whatsoever to say one would be pure and one would be impure.
My next question. Why is one pure?
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't. So because of this absence of reason, this is why both the Maliki and the Hanafi madhab refused to accept that distinction, and they said that this incident in the hadith may be kind of like the description may be misleading. That the person who's saying, oh yeah, because he says, oh yeah, in one incident that the Prophet, like somebody had sat there and a girl had urinated, and the instruction was to wash. Whereas this time it was only another, that the Prophet only sprinkled. They said, well, the response was that may have been because that was all that was needed. Whereas it doesn't mean that they both urinated with the same capacity and the same type of amount of urine. And because of it just completely going against reason. And there's nothing to kind of, therefore they didn't accept it. So,
but what about when you're praying? And oftentimes kids in nappies and would jump on you, your kids.
Nappies jump on you. Nappies just like like a pack of Huggies or whatever they call it. Comes charging at you. Like dodge. So
they've got a nappy on.
Yeah.
Most likely, they've done a poo or wee.
Why most likely though? But okay, but they could have. The potential. I mean, the thing is that, you see, generally in my understanding, although there is this mas'ala that people say, obviously you're not allowed to carry impurities during salah. Yeah, you're not allowed to. So technically, if you were carrying like just a dirty nappy in salah, just for the sake of it, yeah, like obviously that wouldn't be permissible. Now, however, this question, when you look at the hadith so there's that fiqhi response, but then when you look at the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ would often pray, and sometimes you would have Hassan, you would have Hussein, but even more than Hassan and Hussein, there's the hadith where he held the toddler whilst he was praying. Now the understanding is that, you see, toddlers, no matter what stage they're at, there's a great chance of some tiny, impurity on them or whatever and stuff like this. So the fact that the Prophet ﷺ would pray like this shows that to hold children and pray would be permissible on those grounds. That even if, I suppose there's the potentiality that the child may have some impurity on them as a child, as a toddler, whatever. But
you can smell it. Let's say you're praying, they'll jump on you, you can actually smell it.
Right. Okay. I mean, I would say obviously put the child down. Right. Oh, they're not holding them.
But they're holding you. That's all. You're going to sujood and jump on top of you.
But if they put the child down, you need to put it on the floor as opposed to terminate the child.
Okay, yeah. Don't put them down as in terminate them. Alright, so, yeah, I mean, like, I suppose if they climb over you, then obviously just as you're standing up, just put them down, that's it. Like, just don't carry them. You see, you got to remember something. The Prophet ﷺ was praying his salah, and remember the non-Muslims, the Kuffar of Quraysh came and they put all those impurities on top, the camel's type of internal organs and stuff like this on top of the Prophet when he was in sujood. And then somebody came and the Prophet stayed in sujood until Fatima radiallahu anha came and removed them, and then the Prophet sat up. Like, it didn't terminate, although one could argue that was Mecca and a lot of ahkam was still different. But the point is that, you see, it's a different thing, somebody else coming, like the child coming to you, you can't control that. That's beyond your control. The child coming to you, kind of like clinging onto you, doing this, doing that. And as you rise, you would kind of just move the child aside and stand up. Okay. So that should be fine, inshallah. Right. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.